Well, some good matches. It's nice to play some different teams in competitive games. We've obviously had quite a few games with Croatia recently and Switzerland, so it was, all of the groups are quite tough, and a really good fixture with Belgium as well, who's a team we haven't played so much in the last couple of years.
So that is Gareth Southgate reflecting on today's Nations League draw. Once again, England drew Denmark, Belgium and Iceland. Before we talk about the actual draw, Lianne, where do you think we, the public, if you like, are with this tournament? Because we're all a bit suspicious, not quite sure. Then England got to the final last year. What do you make of it as a competition?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of confusion, and I still think there is a lot of confusion. I saw in an interview about 6 months ago, and they asked Harry Maguire, about it, and he kind of said, we don't even know as players, what there is. But I think what I like about it is there's more urgency, and I think people want to win more. I think I've watched England friendlies in the past, and it just seems like, there's not really an atmosphere. People just kind of go through the motions. But I think certainly from what I've seen from this, people want to win, and it just has a better feeling about it.
It's a strange one, isn't it? That, the prize isn't quite known or understood by anyone.
No.
And yet we all want to win it all of a sudden. So it's a good. But you looked at that England team. The way they celebrated the wins in Spain, and wins over in before the tournament summer, the mini tournament in the summer. It just seemed to lack that bit of zealousness, a bit of impetus in that summer tournament because it was when it was. I think the fact that the games during the winter or during the international breaks in the autumn were better because they had a bit more spice to it. But then it did kind of feel like that mini tournament in the summer had sort of that end of season feel to it. So I don't know whether that's due to the success of the England games in relative fixtures or in the respective fixtures, or whether it's just it was that time of year that everyone really wanted to go on their holidays, and it was kind of in between. It was years where there wasn't a major tournament. But do you agree
with Lianne though? It's better for having virtually no friendlies.
I think it's added
or
something.
Certainly much less.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I think there's nothing worse, and I've been involved in a number of England friendlies where you go and by an hour.
Pulling out, because they're not pretending to be injured, but their managers don't want them to go because it's a friendly and stuff like that.
Yeah, and after an hour, it's 11 changes, and the game has gone as a feel. There's no feel to the game. There's no structure to the game. You don't even know who the better team is anymore because it's changed that much, and so it becomes meaningless after a while. So I think that to play, there's nothing like playing to win. And that's what it brings more than what friendlies do.
One thing that makes me happy is I think Gareth Southgate's done a fantastic job of making the England fans fall back in love with the team again, following on from the success of the Euros and the World Cup and stuff like that. I think there were times when not many people going to Wembley to watch the games because, it was kind of like players weren't really playing their best. But I think the country's fallen back in love with the England national team again, and that certainly makes me happy because I feel more enthusiastic now to watch us, as opposed to a couple of years ago I'd be a bit like, oh, if it's on I might watch it, whereas now I'm like excited to watch England play. And I think Gareth Southgate and the players, are more exciting now. They seem more free for whatever reason, and I certainly look forward to watching England games now, whether that's because of the Nations League or because it's not friendly. I just feel there's a different feeling about the squad and the team, and that makes me encouraged to watch.
Let's have a look at the draw in full, starting with the top half of the draw, if you like. And you have to say, even though we're not sure what the prize is, that draw could have been an awful lot worse for England, couldn't it?
Well, all of a sudden you'll say, well, what's a good draw, bad draw? I think no one wants to finish bottom of a group and lose games, but you want to be tested against the best. And you're looking at it, and there's some great teams in there. To play against Belgium is fantastic. We all want to play against the best teams. But you look at the other two games and say, well, actually, they're going to bring different tests. And
Iceland are a very, very good team that I feel like have showed, with their fans and their passion that they have, their team that they have, they all work well together. And I think they're kind
we saw
of
that,
like,
didn't we?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. You would not fancy being in Group 3, would you? Look at that: Portugal, France, Sweden, Croatia.
Well, see, that's the thing. I'd love to go and let
it's true.
You walk off as a player and. you know, you play these international games and you walk and say, well, who did you play against in your career? And you say, well, I played against this player, against that player. That's what you remember at the time.
But if you want to get through, you don't want to get battered by them all.
But
you want an easy draw.
Well, this is it. This is.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I think like you, Rob. I want to play against the best. Like for me, I want to play against.
So you're
the best.
saying on the eve of a tournament, you two, you'd rather have the toughest draw possible?
I say
Not necessarily the toughest draw possible, but
Oh, you're
to play.
backpedaling now.
No, not backpedaling. But you know, like what Rob said, you want to play against the best, and I think sometimes in the women's game in the past, they've strategically tried to do these games so you don't play against the tougher opposition. Or if you win this game, and I think England did it before as well. When they won a tie game, they're like, oh, we'll know who we play in the semi-final if we do it this way. And I don't like that. I think you should try and win every game. Not to be like, well, if we tie and we draw this game, then we'll get to play a weaker opposition. That's not my mentality anyway. But I wouldn't necessarily want us to get all of the best teams in the world.
No, we're looking at this and we're saying, is it a tournament? We're still not quite sure what it is because it goes from a league to a competition to a knockout, but it's over 8 months or what is it? So
what is it?
You know, it's kind of we're still a bit confused over whether it's a tournament or not. So
Fair enough. Let's not forget the rest of the home nations, because of course they were involved in the draw today as well, and interesting results for them.
I think you've got Scotland there who are going to play Israel in the playoffs in a few weeks' time, so that'll be an interesting one. But yeah, I think it's going to be good for Northern Ireland. They're going to be looking at it with the new manager going into learning a new way of playing. You'd imagine.
Yeah,
it's going to be. Group 4 looks very exciting as well. Republic of Ireland versus Wales. I think that'll be a pretty tough game. You know.
They qualified recently, or in a recent qualifying group together as well, wasn't it? So it's familiar foes at some points in some of these.
Good games, not friendly. So you have to say, I was as sceptical as everybody else that it was footballers' governing bodies once again looking to manipulate things. Having said that, though, they have increased the size of the competition because Germany and I think it was Croatia were supposed to be relegated, and they increased the size of the competition. So there will be some dead rubbers in this. There will be. So, with a mind on England, and also we're going to the Euros, Rob, nice easy question. Who should be the goalkeeper?
Yeah.
Having been an England goalkeeper yourself.
Yes, yeah, and when I was...
Jordan Pickford currently holds the shirt.
Yeah, well, this is the prelude to anything to do with England chat, is the one who holds the shirt shouldn't be number one because the voice of protest is always loudest. But at the minute, it's an interesting one, isn't it? If you're going to say to Gareth Southgate, who's your number one, he would say, well, I want to play this way. And this is the identity, what we built through playing fast football, attacking football. And Jordan Pickford has been a focal point of that with his distribution. Now, you look at Dean Henderson, you look at Nick Pope, probably not as good as Jordan Pickford in that specific type of goalkeeping. But then you look at it and you say to Lianne, you say, what do you want from your goalkeeper? And players want their goalkeepers to save shots.
Right, but that's kind of gone out of the game now, I feel like. Goalkeepers used to just be there to save the ball, and now it's kind of like, you need someone that can play out the back, like Alison Becker. It's different now, the goalkeeping. I think the goalkeeping has changed. I mean, I think you of all people will probably be able to say that, but I think goalkeepers have definitely changed the way they play. You're
looking at these errors, and as much as I hate statistics, they're there, and they've brought up a number of things that the shot percentage is low, and some of the number of errors are high. But as Lianne's saying, there are more faculties to the goalkeeping game now that can lead to errors. I mean, you look at the game on Sunday, we've already talked about Everton, Manchester United, De Gea
both ends
errors.
of the pitch.
Yeah, completely different errors, and ones that you're saying, well, would De Gea have made that mistake if he hadn't been told to play out from the back from the start? It used to be old school that you say get it forward for the first 10, 15 minutes. Turn them, do whatever it is. Now it's no, we play out from the back. We play. Even the mistake by Jordan Pickford was from playing the little 5-yard goal kick pass still inside the box and inviting the pressure, which led to losing the ball, which then came the shot
into the goal
from Fernandes.
You've only got to look at when Pep first became the manager of Man City. One of the first things he did was say, he kind of got rid of Joe Hart.
Yes.
Because he said he wasn't good with feet. And I actually think Joe Hart's pretty good with his feet.
And then Bravo went the same way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's not playing the way. You're quite right.
Right, yeah. So it's different. But for me, David De Gea the other day in that game, it just looked like he was hesitating, and it looked like he kind of switched off for a second because he had Harry Maguire right to the side of him. And he also had Lindelof to the other side of him. So, I'm not a goalkeeper and I'm not anti-goalkeepers. I think sometimes people think set strikers are like, oh, you're going to not get on with a goalkeeper and stuff like that. But for me, there's a few other things he could have done, but he just seemed to get lost. And obviously, Calvert-Lewin, he got in and got the goal.
Well, anyway, I've managed to go all this time without answering the question, but yes.
I hadn't forgotten.
I thought I'd beat you to it, yeah.
So?
No, I think, look, there's still games to go before the end of the season. I think Gareth's a loyal guy. What it does build is that question mark, and what doesn't help is having a question mark over your head. What Jordan Pickford needs to go is carry on playing, go and eradicate these mistakes. But the problem is that people will be looking for them, and it's not one. It's been a couple over recent weeks.
When he spoke recently publicly, Jordan Pickford, and he talked about how being the England goalkeeper, you attract an awful lot of criticism. Some of it quite personal, and some of it over the top as well. Did you have empathy with his situation, or do you think he shouldn't have said that and just kept it to himself?
I think the words he used were strong. I think he said you are hated, and I don't think that you are specifically hated, but I do think that you are not seen as a person, which does have bearings upon you as a person as such, in that you are targeted as a shirt rather than a person yourself.
But is that not applicable to virtually every position in football?
Possibly, but I think as a goalkeeper, it's magnified by the fact that you are the goalkeeper, and there is that lack of understanding, seemingly, that if you make a mistake, it is a goal. That's the nature of being in goal. Now, Lianne's played up front and played for England, and you will have been criticised at some points, and probably how you would feel unfairly. But as a goalkeeper, you're saying, well, this is my role. This is what happens, So I think how he went about it, is kind of testament to who he is. He's a full-on guy, and he's an animated character, and it's one that you say, well, actually, if you take it as a pragmatic approach, you'd probably not come out in the same way and say that as he did. But I understand the sentiment that he's coming out with. I think the actual right content, wrong delivery, shall we say.
Okay, and also just staying with goalkeepers, for your money, should Dean Henderson be pushing David De Gea next season at Manchester United?
Well, this is an interesting one, isn't it? That you'd ask Dean Henderson and say, do you want to be pushing him or do you want to play? And if he said, he would probably turn around and go, no, I want to be the number one. And if you say, well, we can't guarantee that, he'd probably say, well, I'll go out on loan for another season and go and play. I think he's got such a confidence about himself, which is a positive, that he thinks he should be Manchester United number one. Now, that's great and that's brilliant. The difficulty comes when he's not, and he's at Manchester United. So, that's one to watch, I think.
But David De Gea, I think, he's done fantastically for Manchester United over the last few years. But I think, honestly...
Of late?
No, and I think they re-signed him when he was kind of on his decline, if I'm honest. You know what I mean? So I think that even Sergio Romero has been a fantastic number two, and I think Manchester United bought him originally because they thought that David De Gea was going to go to Real Madrid. And that's what I honestly think. But I definitely think that we should make the most of Dean Henderson being in his prime at the moment, and I don't think we should lose out. Manchester United shouldn't lose out on someone like him. Manchester United
shouldn't lose
out. Something you want to tell us?
I think everybody knows I'm a Manchester United fan. But David De Gea has been fantastic for us, and I think, like I said, when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's the end of the world. And I think, I just want to think about David De Gea, all the great things he's done for us, but I don't also want to lose out on Dean Henderson because we've decided to keep pushing David De Gea.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came out at the weekend and said De Gea is one of the best goalkeepers in the world, if not the best goalkeeper in the world. Would you want him to stay in goal if it's... do you think he's just backing him to stay in goal, or do you think he's sticking his neck on the line and saying, no, he's my boy?
Yeah, I think at this moment in time, I don't think David De Gea is the best goalkeeper in the world. I think he was one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and he can be again. But I think if we're going off of right now, in this current moment in time, I think he's just saying that, to support him, which is great. And as a goalkeeper, I'm sure it feels nice, especially if you've made a mistake like in the game he did, for that to be supported. Because David De Gea, again, like I said, has been fantastic for Manchester United for the last, 5+ years.
player of the season regularly.
Yes, and he's been, you know, when Manchester United have been on their decline, he's been the only, you know, knight in shining armour, really.
Yep.
So, you know, I think, for me, I think it's great that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's come out in support of him, but I don't want to lose out on Dean Henderson because we've decided to keep pushing the De Gea, because he's made a lot of mistakes.